I remember that, and I also remember matatus are taxis. And
Oh,
so it's a bit
yes.
confusing thinking, I don't want a taxi, or the other way around. When you're saying I'm looking for a taxi, I'm trying to go from point A to B, and they would say, there's a taxi. And when you look at it, it's a matatu, and you're like, no, taxi is a taxi, it's a car.
It's a private car.
Interesting.
My name is Jinna Mwende Odede, and I am so passionate about telling African stories to a different audience. And I just love when those stories are influenced by faith, by the context of the African culture that I have so much grown to love, and how much it has just transformed my life. So this podcast is a podcast that shares real-life experiences of Kenyans, Jamhuri people who dare to step beyond their villages and engage with the wider world. We're going to talk everything from culture shocks to career breakthroughs. We're going to explore the highs and the lows, the lessons, and the faith that definitely has carried some of the people that I have are known to be my friends or mentors. I'm going to have them here, and we're going to talk about this. I think it's so important as an African right now, or as a Kenyan, to understand that there is a world beyond you. And I don't think even you should look at it like this is something just for the privileged or for war. I think you want to experience the world beyond you. And so even if it's just moving from your small village to the next village, you begin to have a wider worldview that things are different. And I think that expands your mind, and you're never the same. And you also begin just to look at problems very differently. So this is what it is. How do we as Kenyans travel around the world? How do we travel from one village to another, or from one hood to another? And how do those experiences shape our lives? This is what the podcast is about. I just want to say how this was inspired by my granddad. My dad told me how he used to travel from Ukambani, Uko, to Kirinyaga borders with an oxen that was full of tar and flour and cereals. And so he was a long-distance trader, actually. He was a long-distance trader. And then my dad traveled to Canada to do his further studies in the 70s. And how when he came back, he just dreamt differently. And so I come from a family that we really value travel, and we really value the idea of engaging with the global world. And so my passion for traveling and engaging with the global world started from pen pals. Guys in the 70s, remember that? Sorry, guys in the 90s, remember that? Yeah, and then I joined the YMCA, and I began seeing Magadi, Mombasa, and then it grew from there. And so today I am so honored to have one of my longtime friends. If there's someone who kind of really knows me, it's this girl. She saw me as a dreamer at 17, and I would just go to her little home because she lived in a home outside their house. Now that was really bougie. She gave me room in that space to just hear my dreams and my passion of how I was really going to use film as a tool for inspiration and for painting a different picture of how Africans are viewed to the world. You want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you for having me, Jinna. First and foremost, I really appreciate it. So my name's Joy Mirigo Montet. I am many things. I'm a mom. I am a career financier. I've been a banker for a couple of years.
Woohoo!
I am ever evolving. I am now exploring a new space. I'm in the development space and really enjoying it. Yeah, I think in a nutshell, that's who I am.
Great.
And I'm a believer as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We love that. We love God. We really do. We're not perfect, but we really do. And just how God has been, that thread that is tying through our experiences in life. So that will definitely be coming up in the podcast, just how faith has carried us through many different moments. So I was the kid who thought my first travel outside was definitely going to be in America, because I thought I was going to go to Hollywood. That's where I was going to go shoot my films. That's where I was going to be able to shine the light of Christ. But shock on me, after filling 1,000 college forms for enrollment, right? I mean, Full Sail and whatever else, I ended up being introduced to AFDA, Arts Film Drama Association School in Cape Town. And that was a life changer. So I was in Daystar. Already Daystar was changing my life. And then I got the opportunity to go and study in South Africa. outside being a Kenyan, I also think in my heart I am South African. Hence the background. I love South Africa. South Africa changed me. South Africa opened up my mind. And that is why my first guest is Joy, because we have that in common, that we both lived in South Africa at different times. And so our first podcast today is we're going to talk about that, how that changed us. I think before going to SA, I knew SA from the eyes of Mandela and all those, Sarafina, all those things that I watched. But it was a very different experience getting there. And so I want to ask Joy. So it's just going to be a conversation. Yeah, we're just going to flow. So How was it for you? I mean, what made you end up going to South Africa?
I had the privilege of traveling to South Africa back in 2017. What took me there was that my husband was appointed or given a different role that required that he travels and works in the country. And so I also happened to have been on a career break, so it made sense. So my husband and myself and our 2 children, then 6 months and 2 years, packed our bags and off we went.
Wow.
It felt very adventurous. It was initially, I would say, shocking in the sense that there were many things that we took for granted that we had to now embrace and adapt as our own. The first thing being that it's so easy to get help in terms of house help.
Right.
In South Africa, it's not difficult, but it is not that easy. You also sort of have to calculate a lot of decisions around that.
Right.
And so that forced us to make considerations for moving without house help from here,
Right.
which we're very thankful for. So we were there for a year and a half, courtesy of the work that my husband was doing at the time.
I mean, I think there's nothing as beautiful as opening up the eyes of young children to a different world other than the one they live in. And that can mean, it does not actually have to mean another country. If you're privileged enough or if you're able to, I think that's a great thing. But even just taking them outside your hood, outside your local area code to a different one. I remember when we lived in Kimathi as kids, my dad used to get all the 5 of us in this small car and drive us to Muthaiga and begin to show us that there was a bigger life beyond that which we had in Kimathi. And Kimathi then was a reasonable estate. I guess it still is, but it's just, he wanted us to know that we could dream above and beyond and there is more. So what was it like? Do you remember any shocking thing? What was your first culture shock?
Well, there were many things. I think we were privileged and blessed to live in a sort of good neighborhood. And so when I think about it, there were not too many things that were shocking in a negative connotation.
Right.
But I think in many ways, the fact that you could live comfortably in an environment that had decent homes, that availed things like, having a swimming pool was not a big deal. Most homes had swimming pools.
Yes.
There was a beautiful garden. And so I started cultivating an appreciation of good neighborhoods and living decently, and that is achievable. I think at the back of my mind, I didn't realize that was happening, but it broadened my mind in that sense.
Right.
I enjoyed my daily routines. I created structure around them. I also noticed that a lot of South Africans are very big on being healthy. So you would go to the supermarkets and there's a lot of organic stuff being sold. There's a lot of focus on health from a fitness perspective. So I incorporated this very early on into our settling there. And that really made perfect sense for me because I'd just given birth. My baby was 6 months. And so I quickly started, sort of inculcating the culture, which was really just fitness, health, and family.
Right.
The other thing I noticed was that there's a focus on family. So weekends were purely blocked out for family activities.
Right.
There was no separation of activities with this in the sense that husbands do their thing. No, we would have brides together, and brides are barbecues what they call barbecues in South Africa.
Right.
So we'd have friends over or would go to other people's homes and spend time as a family. So yeah, that was good, and that was a positive culture shock, that rather than feel that we had to sort of segregate or separate our duties or responsibilities as a couple, we ended up spending a lot of time together and doing a lot of family activities together. So that was really good.
So that's good. So also you're just talking from what you're saying, you're also touching on how gender roles began to expand. So it's not just like only, women do this and men do this, that men were also contributing to the upkeep of the home,
Yes.
So I love that. I think for me, while you were in a bougie neighborhood, a nice one, and that's great. I was at the YMCA in Cape Town because I was a student. And so what was very interesting about it was many students from other African countries also had their accommodation there.
Yeah.
And so we had a common eating area place. And so at dinner time when we sat, it was almost like a literal African village. You would have people from Namibia, you'd have people from Lesotho, you'd have people from Botswana, you'd have people from Mozambique, you'd have people now from Kenya. And, it was very interesting because I only heard about these people. I studied about them, but I had never literally lived with them or experienced them. And it was so eye-opening for me. I just remember I felt almost like a very whitish girl when I went there. And this dining place refined me to appreciate myself as an African, hence the afro. And I'm not saying if you're not wearing your hair, but it's just they had so much pride in their Africanness. I remember they wore like one, there were girls who had very little hair on their head and they rocked it, and I was just like, they rocked it with so much pride. And I was just wondering, how are they able to do that, And so I just remember removing my natural hair, and then I walked into the dining place and guys were like, yeah, that's what's up, And I was like, my hair is beautiful, actually the way I'm built as an African is beautiful, And so the YMCA became my African village that made me really appreciate just what it means to be African, what it means to have features as an African, because they loved on themselves. They were not trying to fit the quote-unquote TV, the media persona of what an ideal person looks like. So for me, it was one of my spaces where I really got character growth in terms of just appreciating myself for who I am. So I even remember coming back and my sisters are like, so what's up with your hair? You don't want to relax it? You don't want to do anything? And I was like, nope, it's just fine the way it is,
It's interesting that you say that because now I remember vividly that I had just locked my hair. I had sister locks and that was the first year of them. And going there not knowing who would be fixing my hair was a bit nerve-wracking. But I also observed that a lot of Africans in South Africa embrace their natural hair.
Right.
And so it wasn't as difficult as I imagined it would be. And I observed as much as well that, everybody sort of took pride in who they were.
Yeah.
There was a lot less of wearing wigs, not that it's a bad thing, but I felt that I saw a lot more people of my color with their natural, expressing their natural selves.
Right.
With the natural hair that they had. So you're right, yes.
Yeah. And their prints, like they wear their prints with so much pride, Oh, so I remember also on the dance floor, I thought I was going to I was dancing more like R&B and stuff.
Yeah.
And these guys, before it was hip, they were with their moves, lifting their legs, the Kwaito dances and everything. And it was just fun to watch that, I think also for me, just the appreciation that they would also allow, people from other African countries into their country, because then, talking about mid-2000s and the African countries were not as developed as South Africa was. So for me, I think I really appreciated the idea that they gave us room to see the new world, Yes, and the possibilities. And they were very, the ones I interacted with were very generous with that. And so for me, there was just that deep appreciation of a sense of, I am a Kenyan, yes, but I also belong to a bigger village, and I call that village for me Africa, So one of my fun facts was the first time I landed in Cape Town, and then I needed to find my directions from YMCA to school. It was a walking distance. This was before Google Maps. And then, so you had to ask somebody kind of directions if you're not good in reading maps. And I remember they kept just saying, go straight, the first robot, okay? Turn right.
Yes.
There will be a second robot. And I was just like, a robot? What is a robot? And in my mind, I thought it was like I was going to see the robots you see in the movies,
I know. I remember that, and I also remember matatus are taxis. And so it's a bit confusing thinking, I don't want a taxi, or the other way around. When you're saying, I'm looking for a taxi, I'm trying to go from point A to B, and they would say, there's a taxi. And when you look at it, it's a matatu, and you're like, no, taxi is a taxi, It's a car.
It's a private car.
Interesting.
For the robot, I tell you, I was trying to go to school and looking for, and now being a filmmaker, I'm literally thinking about, like Transformers type of a robot. And I'm like, oh, this place is bougie. They actually have a robot,
Yes.
And it just hit us. Oh, the traffic lights are a robot.
Are the robots.
Are the robots.
Yes.
So that was really a fun fact about that. I think that was it was funny. I was just like, robots are traffic lights.
Yes.
Yeah, but literally they are robots,
They are.
Yeah. So did you have any challenging moment?
Not that many. I think like I said earlier, the first challenging moment I had was when I had to transition my Kenyan house girl back home and adapt a new one there. And it did go quite as smoothly as I imagined. I got one, and what I didn't know was that if you're interviewing somebody and they stay in your house and maybe because this person was stayed with us for about 2 weeks, and sadly she wasn't the right fit for my children, and I quickly noted that and had to let her go, giving her package and everything. I didn't realize that is actually an issue that can take you to court. Ooh. So in a couple of weeks, I received a phone call from a very random office, and they just informed me that I need to present myself to court because of unfair dismissal. Ooh. So you can imagine being very new in an environment and being, thinking in Kenya, I mean, it's a very easy thing. So long as you give them their dues, it's fine. You can move on. So that was interesting in a shocking and scary way, because I was like, I've never been to court. And so, I mean, looking back now, it shouldn't have been as scary as it was, because we did go to court and we evidenced that we had paid and released the house girl as we should have.
Given her right package,
yes,
right?
her right package. So that was, that was one culture shock for me.
Yeah, because definitely how we work with helps here, who really are of great help to us, is very different from there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so things are more like contract driven, so the legal process is very different.
Yeah.
I don't know what I would do, because I think just the idea of being a foreigner and having to deal with a court, I mean, it's not the same. It does not hit the same.
It doesn't.
Yeah,
yes,
so
yes.
I'm really sorry
that. Threw us off a little bit, but I mean, now we laugh about it because it's the last thing you expected to receive a phone call. But we also know that there are people who sort of exploit that option, and they quickly go making false claims, which was the case in our part. So
you definitely grew from the experience not to be afraid.
Absolutely,
and that if you really are holding the truth, it helps you move forward.
Yeah, it was one quick way of immersing ourselves into the culture and the nuances of how things work there.
Right. I think my challenge was just how expensive it was. Mm-hmm. Especially as a film student, and you have to handle your accommodation, and you have to do, we're trying to work part-time as a waiter, trying to do all these other odd jobs to stay afloat. It was very challenging, and it was one of the countries I would have wanted to relocate and stay in, but just I could not, at that point as a student, understand how my film work would really pay for my upkeep there. And at that time, I think their work policies in terms of getting foreigners into working into the industry was not that easy, especially being in Cape Town. Yeah, I think as a filmmaker, and I have exhibited my work most in South Africa, but it's just one of the most expensive spaces for me to take my work. Yet it's one of the places where I feel I'm appreciated most. Yeah, having been able to exhibit my work at the Oprah Leadership School, have been able to exhibit my work at the South African Airlines, things like that. It's just expense.
It is, yeah. I think my experience was different because I guess different industries call for different, dynamics.
Yes.
I feel like Cape Town is expensive.
Absolutely.
So I would totally empathize with you. I noticed that things like rental are cheaper there. It's cheaper to rent there than it is here. It's cheaper to own a house there than it is here.
Yes.
I also thought, interestingly, that the food was more affordable than it is here.
Yes.
So again, it's different views, different perspectives.
So Joburg, of course, Joburg is a bit more cheaper. So my school was in Cape Town.
Yeah,
and so,
Cape Town. That's why I said at the beginning, Cape Town was definitely more expensive. I mean, we did visit Cape Town, and yes,
you could feel the difference.
Yes.
And also, I think my other culture shock was because I was in the student areas.
Yeah.
Around the Bosch and the what else observatory. Those places, are
very
quite
touristy.
Well.
Yes.
And so one of my Lesotho filmmakers was making a film, and they were like, Jinna, I want to take you where my set is. And it was Guguletu, and it is a slum area. And my heart broke because I did not think that in this beautiful, wonderful, scenic area that there was a Kibera type, upgraded Kibera type of a space. And that's where you saw majority people of color. So I think that was the first time my eyes were opened up to the racial biases,
I see.
that are in SA, because I was like, even in Kenya, as much as we have bougie areas, you'll always see people of color. I mean, you will see Kenyans there, So that broke my heart, especially in Cape Town, just the gap between the have and the have-nots, Yeah. So that was another culture shock I had. So how did your faith tie into this? Like, how was your faith a weaving theme in this?
So when we first moved, obviously we needed to settle in the critical elements of school, housing, and obviously a church.
Right.
And luckily for us, we lived very close to a fantastic church, and we quickly made the decision to move to that church. You may know it, it's Rivers Church. And I feel that living in SA for the 2-year period strengthened my faith in many ways because they made church easy in the sense that it didn't feel like I needed to be anyone apart from myself.
Right.
And I speak also for my family. I noticed that my children embraced their Sunday school, and there were also activities outside of church that really helped all of us plug in with serving and doing other things. So in many ways, my faith grew. The church was sort of cosmopolitan. It had a lot of different nationalities. So just like you and your experience at YMCA, I felt that I was sort of exposed. I feel like it was good exposure to sort of interact and interface with different nationalities in that church. Form a life group that became solid friendships over the course of our time there. So yes, my faith definitely got impacted positively.
Positively.
Yeah, positively for sure.
Yeah. So for mine, because I think I was coming in as a student first, all the protection that I kind of had, wasn't not there. So it was like, what kind of, are you really going to know God for yourself there? I remember the Purity Challenge journey was like, are you going to stand for it or not? Because it was like, a norm there, and I remember going to this church. It was at Baxter Theatre, I think. I can't remember the name of the church, but they were really grounded, and that really helped me walk in my faith in God. And I've always just known God to be a very personal God. So for me, it's regardless of what is going around you, how knowing that you really have to uphold the truth of God for yourself, because your relationship with God is between you and God. And so I think my faith even deepened there, because when your mentors are not around, when your friends are not around, are you still going to believe the Word of God? Are you going to read the Word of God? Are you going to stand for God? Even when you feel like you're losing ground, are you really going to stand? So for me, I think it was just one of those places where my relationship with God grew even deeper. And even just seeing how God over the years has graciously given me opportunities to engage with the marketplace in South Africa, for me is just such a true testament of his faithfulness, that when he said it was not time for America then and led me to South Africa, that he had purpose for me. He had purpose for me. So I think one of my biggest highlights was meeting Gracia Michelle, and doing an interview with her, and that was just like, wow, really God allowing me to meet the kings of the land, So SA, like I said, send me my ID, my identification card. I am South African. I am...
More ways than one.
Yes, in more ways than one. Yeah, I really, really love the country so much. And I am in deep appreciation of the price that they paid for the rest of us to understand democracy in new ways, to understand our rights and things like that. Do you have a parting shot for that?
I think I feel the same way about South Africa. It feels very much like home. It felt like home. We were sad to leave and come back home so early. In my view, it was early, but I think everything works out for good. But I enjoyed the sights and scenes. It's a beautiful country with rich culture. I enjoyed interacting with people there. And I mean, if there was ever an opportunity to live there, I would definitely take it on again. Yeah, so quite
Me
grateful.
too.
Yeah.
So they also need... So we have a request. Did you hear us, South Africans? There are 2 identification cards that we need here. You got to give us the names, I've forgotten them, Is it Tabo or what?
Tabo.
Tabo. Oh, yeah. And that the whole course, I think. Yeah. So, you can call me Nyeleti. I have a friend called Nyeleti, yes. Yeah, so thank you so much for just sharing your experience. You are my first guest, and you're definitely coming back because
what an honor.
Because she's humble. She's really traveled this world. So, she's probably on her CG fourth passport or something like that. So, Joy, but I really just appreciate you for just being such a tender friend in my life. I always say, people always think lastborns are spoiled. And it just depends what type of family you grew up in. Now, I had very opinionated 4 elder siblings, and so there was no room for me to give my ideas, thoughts, and opinions. In my childhood, Joy was one of those people that she gave me room to be heard. So, partly this confidence that you're seeing has been cultivated through the hands of many people. Of course, my mom and my siblings, but I also appreciate friends like you who give me that space. So,
thank you for this space. I've also enjoyed being here, and I've enjoyed being your friend and just watching you blossom into this person. Yeah. And let's do this again.
Absolutely.
Yes, let's do this again.
Great. So the social media handles will come if you want to follow us in our journey. Please feel free, and like everyone else, subscribe. Thank you so much.